Salutations, dear viewers. You're on with Nex of the Vast Nexus, and we are continuing our Let's Play of Classic Doom. We are on episode, or mission 3, or no, it is episode. I'm dumb, apparently. We are on episode 3, Inferno, now grinding our way through mission 4. I can never seem to hit these guys with the explosive barrels. My ammo is going to start getting low at some point. It happened last time. There's no reason to expect that it won't happen this time. So these two... I'm going to deal with him first because I need to rocket the other two, but I need to be conscientious of where I'm pointing that rocket to get the most effect out of it. A talking point I had, for those of you who caught the first part of this particular episode, was that this is my second time recording it. And I'm not reiterating on it just because I'm that upset about it. A talking point I had the first time I recorded it was my consideration at the time of recording of whether or not I was going to get Death Stranding. Because while I'm not a worshipper at the cult of Kojima, literally what it is. I was a fan of the Metal Gear franchise, and the Metal Gear franchise that I have been exposed to have all involved his guidance. The thing with Death Stranding is that while it may have action elements at times, it is fundamentally a game of terrestrial navigation, exploration, and fundamentally you're a delivery person. I mean, let's just call it what it is. That has put a lot of people off, but I think they are missing the greater artistic point. Kojima may design games, but he's always sort of erred on the side of interactive cinema. His stories are enormously elaborate. Of course, if I were to embrace a stereotype for a moment, that's kind of the way for a lot of Japanese work. It's always very complex, nothing's ever simple. And the thing is, Kojima is actually, like, going to be getting into legit films soon, just dropping the interactivity altogether in favor of something that is purely cinematic, and I think that would probably be a good choice for him, to be honest. And the thing is, Death Stranding is a first tentative step away from what he is known for and into what he would very much like to do. I mean, you have long cinematic sections, you have actors and other film personalities all meticulously captured in their performances for the game. You have a story that involves moral and ethical and human questions. It does have a certain appeal. The thing is, the lack of appeal comes from the fact that it's not really my genre. I'm going to openly point that out. It is not my genre. Ow. Lost soul. I mean, my next Let's Play will probably be Metroid Zero Mission. That's what I have planned. Of course, I'd planned for Doom to be my first Let's Play, and it turned into Resident Evil 3. And I'll say right off the bat that if you're thinking about getting into Let's Plays, you need to accept one truth up front. You know, your first Let's Play is going to be terrible. It's going to be a poorly polished, you know, crappy... It's just, that's the way it's going to be. Because until you have an understanding of what you need to do, and I feel that that is something that you can only gain by actually experiencing it, it's going to have that newbie quality. You just can't avoid it. You can rehearse, and for the record, no, I did not. But all of that ultimately is just not going to carry you there, like actually just sitting down, doing it, and accepting the fact that the first one's going to be terrible. Now, I don't think my reactions to Resident Evil 3 were terrible. What was terrible was production quality. Only one video featured an edit. There was only one edit. There's a lot of content of me effectively just playing the game, which the benefit of a YouTube posting format as opposed to streaming is that you have the luxury of fine-tuning your footage into something that is of a higher quality. Whereas with a stream, it's just an utterly uncut and unabridged experience. So, what I did in Resident Evil 3 would probably have been acceptable for a stream, but not necessarily as good in the context of a YouTube video. The issue with streaming, and why I didn't go that way, is that for starters, you need to keep energy up during a stream, you need to keep gameplay going on a constant basis. It is a marathon as opposed to a sprint, or even a, hike. Some kind of low-intensity but long-duration thing that you might engage in. I definitely feel that if you're going to go into streaming, you perhaps should start with just making videos as opposed to trying to stream them, because if you can't manage that sort of enduro hiking run or the sprint, you're certainly not going to make the marathon. It's not going to happen. Now, I suppose you could just YOLO it and go in however you want, but at the end of the day, I'm not saying this in any sense as an expert. I most certainly am not. This is my second Let's Play of all time. I'm not even within my, 30th YouTube video itself. So I'm not saying this on the grounds of I know better than you do, but that is my impression of the matters. If you're going to stream, start with maybe a Let's Play or just recording some game footage. While streaming may not involve editing, something that you probably will want to do if you're just recording footage, having that capability of knowing the hardware for an edit is also a useful thing to know when you're streaming, because if you do encounter technical issues during a stream, you're going to want to be able to fix them as quickly and as smoothly and effortlessly as possible. If you don't know your way around whatever it is that you're doing, that's not going to happen. Now, another point that I would like to make, where was the production quality really lacking beyond editing? Well, audio. I'm only going to say this once, unless I just happen to say it again. The point is, I'm not going to reiterate myself in response to any questions that might arise over it. I'm recording with an on-headset microphone, and I can hear every person who's a seasoned Let's Player groan, because yes, the headset microphones are absolute garbage. Yes, I am aware of that. And no, I do not have plans for the immediate future to remedy that situation. I will be recording with a headset microphone for quite some time from now. I have made an effort to improve audio leveling, but again, the recording software creates an issue there. My voice is recorded along with the game. I'm not recording my voice separately, and I don't have separate mixing or compiling programs. Again, something that I'm going to look into. The point is that I thought, when I started recording, that lowering the system volume would lower the volume of the games I was playing, and thus my mic would be coming through clearer. And another problem, for the record, which probably ties into the whole headset mics are garbage. The voice you're hearing broadcasted into your earholes right now is not actually how I sound. And it's not just one of those things where people hear themselves in a recording and, there's no way I sound like that. No, I have confirmation from other people that I know that I don't actually sound like that. The mic is missing something. I'm going to open the door. Why is it being like that? And the issue is, I've noticed in my Resident Evil 3 playthrough, there are times, particularly when there's a lot of background noise, that I can barely be heard. So, if you're thinking that, man, I can't even hear him talk, you're not alone. That's a problem. Why don't I go back and re-record it? Because, again, accept the fact that your first Let's Play is going to be garbage. Do it anyway, and get on with your life. Life lessons from Nex. And besides, I mean, as my first Let's Play, it will probably become incorporated into some anniversary thing should this channel actually overcome the odds and become some resounding success, and yada yada yada. Obviously, at this time of recording, in my second Let's Play, that is a ways off. I'm not one of these types who thinks that I can achieve some kind of vague internet stardom in no time flat, because if you do think that, you're deluding yourself. But everybody has to start somewhere. And so, you know, get it started, get it moving, get it over with. Now, as for my solution for the audio problem, I have gone into the game volume and dumbed the game down. Now, the downside of that is if I have overestimated how much I had to dumb it down, the game is going to be very quiet, and my ranting upon the difficulties of being an up-and-coming YouTube content creator is all you're really going to get. If that is the case, I am sorry about that, but what else do you expect me to do to fill these hours? If you want a Let's Play where a guy screams at a screen in fear or rage for 30 minutes, there are hundreds of YouTubers that can go that way. I can't get to that power-up now. That's unfortunate. Whoa. Why didn't I pick up get the chain gun? Am I just maxed out? I am maxed out. Surprise, surprise. Now, do I encourage YouTube content creation? Well, the affirming thing to do would be to say, yes, I encourage you to make content if that's what goes for you, but I'm going to state right now that, again, not coming from an expert, but if you want to compete with the people who have become essentially titans of the format, you gotta up your game. Part of that's going to come from investment. If you're working with lousy hardware, for me, my mic is probably the lousy thing that I'm using right now, as well as some of the software. If you're working with lousy hardware, you've got an uphill battle ahead of you. You need to consider editing. It's going to take a lot of time, because to truly edit a video properly, you're probably going to have to watch it through and note its pacing. That is not easy either. And so, don't assume, because I feel like a lot of, especially younger people, and I'm not shaking a finger at the younger people, but I feel like a lot of people think that they can just play a game, record it, put it up on YouTube, and make themselves into some instant monetized success. It's not going to happen. Having realistic goals is probably the only real secret to success. Have a goal that can be achieved. I mean, I don't aim high. It's entirely possible that this channel will go nowhere, and if that turns out to be the case, then I probably won't even bother continuing to produce content. But we're still quite a ways off from knowing whether or not that will actually be the case, hence the content creation. I'd say if I had a viewership of 100, their stamp of approval or disapproval would probably inform, not entirely, but partially where I'd go from there. Should I change my format? Should I apply more polish? If the viewership continues to grow, the feedback is important, because I've already made a point that I'm not a social character by any extent or form of the imagination. And fundamentally... why isn't this working again? Let me in the room! And fundamentally, creating a strong connection with potential viewers is not easy or intuitive for me. So, beyond the technical hurdles, I do view that as an uphill battle. Again, at time of recording, it's not really an issue that I have to worry about in particular, because it's not a huge exaggeration to say that virtually no one is watching this. That's actually pretty accurate to the truth. Now, another point is that, should you make content that is appealing to you, or should you sell out to a broader audience? My thought on that is make content that is appealing to you. My reason for that is that fundamentally what the audience wants is going to change, and it's going to be subject of a great deal of change. Fads come and go. And in the end, you should stick with a format that you like, that you think goes well with what you're intending to do, and not just try to sell out to whatever is going to be enormously popular at the time. That doesn't mean don't explore something that is bound to be more successful, because fundamentally that's what anybody should do. But if you have a format that you like, or a format that you think works well for you, stick to it. If you're going to try something else, then diversify what you're doing. Hang on. Slight emergency in this game right now. There we go. I should have enough ammunition to deal with these guys. It would be lovely if I had a chainsaw. This has gotten awfully brainy for Doom, but like I said, at this point I'm just going through the motions with Doom because I've played this particular part already, so it's not all that involving for me. It's one of the reasons I opted to go for Resident Evil 3 as the first one, because I had no experience with it. I had no idea what I'd be expecting. And so I just got in there, and I just did it. Unholy Cathedral. What about some Doom-related news? That'd be weird, talking about something that, you know, relates contextually to the game that I'm actually playing. Hang on, ow, hang on. I don't suppose I have any Doom-related news, to be honest. Oh, I could point out the fact that I haven't actually seen a Let's Play of Doom Eternal, so when I do ever get around to that, it's going to be an entirely fresh experience, but in terms of when that's scheduled, that's quite a ways off. Will I do Doom 64 or not? I still am not certain. Like I said, Doom 64... I mean, it's not like I'm doing Plutonia and the Lost levels. This isn't a I run through every Doom thing that ever existed ever. I'm not, like, pandering to that level of severe, obsessive fandom. I just feel like modern gaming creations are built on a foundation of a number of classics that get ignored or forgotten. I mean, let's not forget the whole risky business in the shirt and underwear with the socks sliding across the floor that everybody saw in the commercial and thought it had come from something else, which was a reference to the original. I'm starting to think that Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex hit on something with the notion of copies without any actual discernible original. Because people are starting to copy things without actually knowing what started the trend. Copy gets copied, and then that gets copied, and then that gets copied, and before you know it, whatever started it is just lost to the eons. That's never happened with me, because I do the homework. I find out the lineage of something. I find out its provenance. I don't just take what I see as granted. I don't take anything I see as granted. When do I get more plasma? Huh. So I did find out last time I was here that there is, in fact, a radiation suit through that passageway. These missions become fundamentally longer the further into the game you go. That should not really come as any surprise. It gets more difficult. You got more demons to slay, more puzzles to solve, more traps to sidestep. Get blasted! Now this particular gaming session, not necessarily all the gaming I'll be doing today, is going to be isolated to just Inferno. My previous gaming session with Doom went from the first episode through the second. That button. There we go. Part of that, like I said, is that my daily schedule has been, you know, knocked off quite a bit, which is not good as far as I'm concerned. And because I'm not using recording software that has some kind of tie-in to YouTube, the video conversion time is just absolutely awful. I'm not blaming YouTube as a platform for that. That's because, again, I need to get better software. And of course, I made the statement that you need to invest. Well, you could probably find free software, but I do feel the adage that you get what you paid for still holds true. So if you're getting free software, it's undoubtedly going to be lacking in features. So, yeah. That doesn't mean you should overpay for software. That's not what I'm implying at all. Where does that teleport take me? Ah, yes. And pop 'em. Huh? Oh, you're kidding. I barely eliminated any of them with that because the trace rays. I feel like I've already explained how the BFG operates, but that was in the recording session that nobody heard. The BFG is functionally a shotgun in this game. While it does fire a single projectile, which deals about half of its overall damage, the other half is divided in a series of invisible shotgun hit scan beams that literally run from one end of your screen to the other. So the BFG will always deal more damage to targets at point blank range because it is fundamentally a shotgun. It's one of the reasons why, despite the BFG affecting enemies around your target, as well as your target itself, it doesn't damage you, because if it was an explosive weapon, you would take damage upon firing it at point blank. The fact that that doesn't happen allows the BFG to be a weapon for pretty much any occasion, provided you have the ammunition for it. Naturally. Where did this guy come from? So let's start triggering some of these. One of my concerns, as it stands right now for Doom Eternal, is that the notion that it's a thinking man's action game, that's fine in concept, but I am concerned about the execution, because what I've heard is not entirely good. For one, that's not what I want to do. For one, ammunition limitations are a major problem. It forces frequent use of the chainsaw, as well as constant swapping between weapons. That is not, in and of itself, fundamentally a good sign of conscientious game design. I'm sorry to say it, but that's the truth. I mean, if you're going to incorporate an upgrade system, then upgrading your maximum ammunition should involve more than getting 2 additional lousy shotgun shells. There's also the fact that maps are much larger and more open, explorable by the new movement mechanics, but more open maps create issues with ease of avoiding enemy attacks, or enemies being so frequent that the player becomes ultimately overwhelmed. Now, let me shift myself over here. Alright, I'm in the right place, and I am not in the right place. Okay. Weird. Maybe I just have to go at this one. Nope, that's the one that takes me back here. I'm reminded of those Mario levels where if you don't take the right path through the castle, you get sent back where you started. Of course, back then, things like Let's Plays didn't even exist. So, there wasn't exactly an audience to upset by you trying out the same teleporter a half-dozen times without realizing that you needed to use a different one. Okay, we've done that. That is done. I need ammo badly. Especially before I tackle the area that I'm planning on getting to soon enough. Okay, that's not it. There we go. There's a rocket, there's some chain gun ammo, which I'm going to need for that room up ahead. And now we can stand on this damaging floor for as long as we like, or need to. to get all of the stuff that is within this room and eliminate the enemies. I have not done a nightmare run on Doom. I have tried out a nightmare run, but for obvious reasons, it's a nightmare. I mean, it lives up to the name. Respawning enemies is the problem. I mean, fundamentally, you end up having to rush through and only grab what is absolutely necessary because there are enemies that are just going to constantly show up, and your ammunition is finite. It's the same reason why my Let's Plays, or not my Let's Plays, my run-throughs of Resident Evil tend to have such abysmal ranks. I am a completionist. I like to get all of the stuff that there is to get, as opposed to just running through as quickly as possible. And especially without foreknowledge of where that stuff is located, I will end up... There we go. I will end up exploring an area more times perhaps than I need to, just to be sure, just to be thorough. It's kind of an OCD thing. It's not something I'm proud of, it's not something I'm ashamed of. Now, I feel like the invulnerability will pay dividends when I get to... Let me out. Let me out. When I get to the room that I need to clear soon. So what do you say we grab that? And I am going to save, and you'll note save files from the future missions. Alright, here we go. Here we go. This will give me a better fighting chance. Last time I got seriously mulched in this room. Baron has yet to show himself. Which is just fine, I'm dealing with plenty as it is. Well, now the Baron seems a little preoccupied with a pinky, which works for me. And there we go, the room cleared with a minimum amount of fuss. Apart from this Baron, who's still just being a pain. I don't even think this Baron is here on lower difficulty sessions, that's just because this is ultra-violence difficulty. Ah, ultra-violence, I'm reminded of A Clockwork Orange. Good film, weird, strange, still good film. Let's retrieve, or let's scan for some of the items that we want to grab before we leave. Alright, I believe it's here. Nope. Yeah, I gotta go to the one in that corner, but it's difficult to orient yourself when you're not looking at the map. Okay. We got a med kit. We got all these things doing their stuff. I mean, the weird part with me in recording is that, as part of that whole it being a stream of consciousness thing, when I'm done recording, I don't remember what I've said while I'm recording. And that does get me a little nervous, because it's just a stream of consciousness, you could potentially blurt out something in a moment of, I don't know, sheer panic, and end up later on like, wait, I said what? I don't like that concept of being unaware of the errors you've made, because I am very conscientious of the errors I make, and that's one point why I have a low tolerance for critics of what I'm doing. First of all, many of them are unqualified, they've never done anything on their own, but beyond that, it's the fact that no one is more critical of my work than I am. But at the same point, I am perhaps forgiving of the flaws of my work in a way that others are not. And people might judge me for that, showing, what, self-favoritism? And I just make the point that, well, perhaps you'd prefer it if I just hated myself and everything that I did, because it would make your life easier for some reason. Now, where am I going? Okay, to Mount Erebus, I believe. Indeed, Mount Erebus. And it's so far on the edge of the map that the "you are here" is split between two sides of the frame. Funny. And... wow, I didn't take any damage doing that. That's different. Get out of here, Spectre. Nobody cares. Ow! Cacodemon. You guys didn't try hard enough. Give me that backpack full ammo. I apparently just aggroed a lot of enemies. And again, Mount Erebus, given that it is a mountain of the blood god, it's not exactly short on hostiles. I don't like leaving lost souls floating around where they can cause problems for me later. Where did these lost souls even come from? I know that this place is just littered with monster closets. Okay, they just keep clipping me. I'm far away, but that means I'm hitting multiple ones in a single shotgun blast. Works for me, except when they do that. Besides, they're also attacking each other. And my armor is surprisingly still holding out. For those of you who don't know, armor in Doom does not act like armor in a lot of modern games. One of the RPG elements, in fact, you might say the armor's behavior is entirely formed by RPG elements. Armor in RPGs usually reduces damage, sometimes based on the type of weapon used, by a fixed amount. But it, along with weapons, is usually limited by a durability that requires the player to either have a mending, blacksmithing skill, or to visit one in-game to restore the item back up to its full capability. In Doom, your armor reduces damage by a set percentage. However, the damage that it eliminates, it basically absorbs and loses as part of its own percentage. Now, the green standard armor has 100 points of durability, represented by that percentage, and dissipates 1/3 of all damage received. The blue mega armor is fundamentally superior, absorbing half of all damage, rounded down, and has 200 points of durability. There's no stacking effect. I suppose that should be mentioned. Yeah, we're just gonna BFG this group. There we go. Now technically, once I move on to the next mission, it will be an area that I didn't play through last time. I am very conscientious of the potential impact of these videos. Getting into Let's Playing is something I wanted to do for a while, and I just never was able to or found the time to get around to it. At the time of recording, we are in the middle of something of a pandemic. Perhaps that created the context for me to put in the effort. Not much else that can be done at the moment. Okay, who's hitting me? I must have caught a shotgun blast from the guy at the other side of the room. Gotta watch out for those Kako demons, though. They're gonna pop out sooner or later. Boom! Boom! Besides, I feel like another thing limiting viewership is that the people with which I associate are not great consumers of Let's Plays. And fundamentally, your start in terms of generating a viewing audience is a very social one. Your friends and family watch it, they tell their friends and family, and so forth and so on, and it spreads like chickenpox. Right now, I'm betting people were wishing chickenpox was the most of their worries. I need armor. And I should endeavor to keep things perhaps better spirited. I'm still a little sour over the fact that my last recording session went the way it did, about the fact that I even put in a position where I'm forced to do this the way I am now. It's just... Remember to grab those 2 health pickups, because once you go through these teleporters, you are walking into a world of hurt. Okay, maybe not that one, but the other one. These guys might be big targets, but man, they are damage spongy. And of course, terrain features don't slow them in the slightest. They can fly. One of the cardinal rules of Doom. Keep moving. Unlike modern games, hiding behind a rock for 30 seconds is not going to do you any good. Okay. And that's gonna cut you guys loose. There we go. Hit the target. Now comes another bit of unpleasantness. Now down there is the exit to the bonus stage. We'll be getting to that momentarily. What the? So my rockets just suddenly ceased to exist, apparently. And those are hitting the side of the railing and not the Kako demons. Am I hitting anything? I'm nervous. I'm literally locked in a box with critters on all sides. There we go. So, we've explored pretty much everything. The old plasma rifle spray. Followed by a brief shotgun interlude. Because why not? Now, we need stuff and things, in particular, to gather some of the armor and the auto map that are hidden elsewhere on the map. We are going to need an anti-radiation suit. That invulnerability will allow us to find the aforementioned suit. There's the mega armor. Still no suit. There's a suit. Now the level exit is somewhere. Now we've run out of invulnerability, but that's okay. We have a second. Because invulnerability is very helpful for making the level transition without problems. And I'm going to demonstrate what I mean by that. That area I showed you before is difficult to reach. You can try a diagonal run in there, or you can use the blowback from one of your own rockets to hurl you in there. Guess which one we're using. Of course, you do that, and you'll give yourself massive damage, and the next area is no picnic. So, it's a good idea to make sure that you don't end up inadvertently ruining your own day. However, unfortunately for all of you, that is the third of missions for this particular episode in the set. More specifically, that was mission 6, which means that's the end of this particular video. I hope you're all staying happy and healthy, and I will see you in the next part, which I'm going to record immediately after I stop this recording. So, I'll be seeing you soon, when you'll be hearing me. Actually, seeing isn't appropriate in either instance because we can't see each other. I'm ranting and rambling fairly well.